Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. This is of course our Module 4 lecture, which we're going to talk about the all-important APA style. So in healthcare, our writing style is centered around APA. I know a lot of different paths you can go in your education career might use different types of writing styles, but in healthcare we use APA. I know in English MLA is the standard, but I've used APA my entire life. I know a lot about it. I'm finishing up a doctoral program now. Luckily, it's taken me a long time, but um, I use APA quite a bit in that program. So uh, as I go through this guide, remember that sample papers are available for you, and that's what I'm going to give an overview about right now. I downloaded this off the internet, but there's a lot of resources in this module that will help you continue to learn about APA. So your writing style is really important. How you document things, where you put your in-text citations, how your references look, all that matter just as much as the material in your paper. So the way you're graded in your upcoming paper and presentation, your legal research, a lot of it's going to center around how did the APA look? How did I follow directions? So this is an overview of how you're supposed to guide yourself in regards to your APA paper. First off, I'm going to give some instructions regarding your legal research paper, and I'm going to switch and then we'll come back to this paper right here where I'll give an overview of APA. What we're going to do for legal research, really cool. We get to go into case files. I use Google Scholar a lot, and find a case, a legal research case or a legal case that's important to you or interesting to you. Everybody kind of knows about the Terri Schiavo case from a long time ago. I've had people write about that, but there's other cases, maybe Big Pharma is another case you're interested in. There's a lot of cases out there that we want to find more about, find more, maybe want to do research on how to prevent something from happening in the future. Maybe you disagree with the final judgment. I don't know. Like, we could find a case that you're interested in, so you get to pick. So the paper instructions is kind of interesting. You have an APA format style paper. It's 3 pages. That does not include the title page or the reference page, and we'll go over what that looks like in a minute. But that's what's due for this, and of course, a 3 to 5 minute presentation where you record yourself talking, kind of like I'm doing now. You don't actually have to have video on in that. But that's what we're going to write about. We're going to have a paper that we're going to write about 3 pages. You got to have at least 2 references. They need to be scholarly. And then, if there are cases that would be considered, in my book, scholarly, right? I know it's not technical scholar work, but it's a review and it's accurate. So 5 references is usually more credible, just having more availability. So you really did your research. You're not going to be graded based on whether or not you agree or disagree. It's going to be based on if I'm able to understand your writing, and then also making sure it's an APA. All right. I'll go over the rubric here in a bit, but I'm going to highlight grading here. So it's got to be a well-written paper, no grammatical issues. It's going to be a convincing argument, and then you got to be a good presentation. You got to give a good presentation of the facts. It's going to be 15% of your total grade. Here's a great example from a long time ago. California hospital had to pay more than $3.2 million, set allegations that it violated the physician's self-referral law. So there's a case there, just as an example. Let me go to the rubric real quick. Hey, where'd you find this? It's actually in your submission portal. So the rubric is going to look like this. I'm not going to have a rubric based on your video because everybody's going to have a different way of how they approach their outline in regards to talking about their paper. So that, as long as you get that done, that's good. Okay, so in response to the rubric, here's what it looks like. You're going to be graded on your sources. Hey, did you have those sources that I talked about? That's references, right? Is it formatted in APA, right? Your format. Is your style APA? This says AASA, but it's supposed to say APA. I'm not sure why that is a spelling issue. I'll have to mention that to whoever created this. It's a PDF. So get that fixed. Writing technique. Hey, how was your writing? Did it make sense? And then your summary, right? Did you summarize the material Is there a conclusion? Does it make sense in regards to that? So that's what the assignment is all about, right? All right, let's look a little bit more about APA. Again, if you want to see when your exact due date is, take a look at the course schedule. I don't want to go to that and give you information on that right now because I want to take time to go over the APA style, which is all important. Where do I find information on APA? Well, it's all over the internet. This is the APA style main page, and there's some great sample papers in here. There's always sample papers. We're going to stick to the student side, not the professional side, although I would like for you to put title running head on your paper, which we'll talk about in a minute. But there's all kinds of great information here regarding sample papers that you can put your information into, copy and paste, so it's in the right format. All right, let's pull up that file I was using earlier. So this is an APA paper, one of those sample papers that I mentioned. A couple things. This is your cover page. All right, and I'm doing this, of course, in Apple on a Mac, so it might look a little different on a Windows computer, but the basics are the same. You're going to have, of course, your all-important page number up here. If you're using Word, you go into Insert, and you hit Page Number, and you want to put it on the far right end of each page. So if I go to page 2, it's going to show page 2. Another thing that you want to put here is the title of your paper. So it's going to be, of course, Legal Research Paper. And all I would need to do is tab that over. And then there is my all-important running head, right? So that's what it's supposed to look like. So that's one of the things that's required in an APA paper. All right, you're going to have your title here on the title page, your name, the course, and no, I'm sorry, you actually have the school there. So just put Pima Medical Institute. Then communications. My name. I'm not a doctor yet, so you don't call me doctor. Just my name. And then the date. So when did you submit this? As you can tell, this was done in October of 2019. So that's what the title page looks like. Pretty simple, right? Not too difficult. When you get to the second page, that's when the introduction starts for the paper. All right. So your title is going to be listed again, and you probably asked yourself, why is the title listed twice? And I don't know that answer, but that's just the way it is. So your title needs to be listed a second time before the introduction. All right. So one of the things I want you to notice, this paper is of course going to be split up in 3 parts, and I recommend this for you guys as well. Your introduction, the body of your paper, and then the conclusion. So think about it like a pyramid. Kind of, I guess you could say, yeah, a pyramid. So the introduction would be kind of lower level, very little detail, broad overview of the topic. And then when you get to the body of course, the work, and maybe I could put a little symbol here to help you guys. There you go. I'll delete that in a minute. But I'm talking down here, down in the bottom left-hand corner. Not a lot of course, information. A very, very small amount of broad information. No detail. The body of the paper would be at the top of the pyramid, right? That's the next section, section 2, where you get into the granular detail of the case, right? Why did it happen? What kind of transpired in the case? Ongoing and ongoing. The body of the paper is the largest part of the paper. And then when you get to the conclusion, which is the bottom right-hand corner, it's again broad, and you summarize kind of the findings. So it's another broad facet. So broad at the beginning is your introduction. The body of the paper is the largest. That's going to be some very particular information based on the case, and then a broad overview for your conclusion. And that is what an APA or a paper should look like. All right, now I got to figure out how to get rid of this thing. There we go. All right, so that is how the paper is formatted in that regard. Another thing you're going to notice in this review is here's some in-text citations. You have to cite your sources in academic writing. So in APA, one of the things we look for is making sure the references are associated to the in-text citations. So, as you can tell, we're going to go look at this. This is an in-text citation. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, but he summarized the findings of this citation and, of course, listed out the reference. So it's the last names and the date. Here's the trick, though. If there are more than 3 that wrote the paper or the material, you need to use ETAL. ETAL, and we'll talk about that in a second because I'm going to show you one. But let's go look at the reference section just to make sure that's correctly analyzed. So he summarized this person's work, or these 2 individuals' work. So let's go to the end of the paper, and you'll see right here is the summary, right? So this is where he found the information. That's the reference, all right? Okay, so another way that I talked about in regards to your all-important in-text citations is ones that have direct quotes. So let's look at this. You see how this is a direct quote? If it's a direct quote, then you need to include the page number in the work. So as you can tell right here, the page number is listed because he used a direct quote, or they used a direct quote. So that's there. I'm trying to find you, here's a great example. Here's another example of in-text citation. Remember I talked about if there's more than 2 authors, you include ETAL, which means and so on and so on. I forget the exact Latin term, but that's that means more than 2 authors. So let's look and just reference that. So I'm not going to try to pronounce that name either, but if you go down to the bottom here, you'll be able to see this individual and how there's 3 authors. So more than 2 authors, you're going to include ETAL, and of course that is a scholarly reference there. All right, so that's a little bit about in-text citations. So we talked about how the writing is supposed to look, yada yada. Another thing to note is the all-important headings. So you're going to have a heading list, and you want to make sure that each section is highlighted by a header. So I'm not going to get into level 1, level 2, level 3, but from that perspective, just make sure you have headings on each section, and that breaks up your paper. So your body might have a few headings, right? You might have the case, right, as a heading, and then the verdict as another heading. So keep that in mind. You can have your introduction and your conclusion as a heading as well, all right? So let's look at references. So you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, how do I put this in the right format for the references? That's a good point. I have an easy way to do that, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. But you need to list out all your references. Remember I said at least 3? You have at least 3 to 5. That's something that you want to find and include. One thing that you'll pull when you pull references, it'll look like this. You'll have to go into the text to add the DOI. If you don't have any DOI, that's fine. But if there is one, please include it, because that's a quick way for me to access your references. Let's look at Google Scholar, and I'm going to show you how to pull this really easily. Scholar, you can also use the PMI library, which is excellent. We might tap into that in just a second. But so if I look at closing a hospital, I look at federal cases. So you saw in that I click case law, right? So let's just put healthcare, big pharma. How about that? Tons of stuff comes up. So how do I cite this? I'm going to use this great source here. You can actually hit this little button that says cite, and that's all you have to do. Cite it just like that, right? That's an easy way to cite it. It's going to look a little bit different than a scholarly source, right? Let's take a look at what it looks like outside of case law. So I'm back here. I'm going to put healthcare in, and I can do the same thing in a non-case, and I want to use APA. I just copy and paste that, right? Super easy. So let's go back to our paper and take a look. So you just locate that, put it in there, and then of course go into the text and find the DOI and add that as well if you can find it. It's not a requirement. If you have trouble with that, let me know. Let's pull up one more thing before I end this lecture, a broad overview about APA. PMI online library. I really like EBSCO. When you click on that, you'll have access to a large database of information. If I type healthcare, all kinds of great stuff's going to come up, and you're going to be able to see what I talked about. This, all you got to do is click on it, and on the right side, they'll have a section that says Cite, and then just find APA. I hope this helps you. There's a lot of great information, more to come. Thanks for all your participation.